Solvitur Ambulando, The Adventures of Steve and Dixie by Stephen Breakstone, copyright 2025. Snippets from my journal. Episode 25, Month 6, November 1986. November 1st, 1986, Saturday. Rain again. It is TV City again. That's all there is to do. When Dixie got hurt, I lost all those feelings of optimism that my suffering and hard work and aloneness will all be rewarded. For a bit, I lost all hope with the world. That was a momentary lapse. Now she is much better. Her bruises are healing. She still limps a little, but less and less all the time. Now, as she has been throwing up a bit, I'm not sure why, but actually she's eating, drinking, and eliminating just fine. And she bounces as best as she can when she's in the mood. Her mind is there, and her body is coming back. That's my little trooper. Side note, you might have noticed that I've made fewer journal entries during my time on the Brady farm. For instance, this one video covers all of November 1986. And there's less detail of my emotional state and physical experiences as my day-to-day experiences became somewhat repetitive. I was living on the farm, working when there was work, and hanging out when it was raining. And also, notice the limited amount of entries regarding Dixie's serious injury. After the accident, it was just a day-to-day healing process. Oh, I was full of angst about it, especially at the beginning, but she was healing a bit each day. And she stayed home resting, and I either went to work harvesting in the fields or I stayed inside the bunkhouse with her during the inclement weather. And generally, we didn't go for long walks, but we did still walk a little bit, for the exercise, the healing, and, well, always peace of mind. But let me state for the record, it was a major freak out at the beginning. But she was lucky, I was lucky, and after the initial shock and the call to the vet and some home-loving care, she was getting better and better, and I was confident that she'd be okay, especially by the time spring came for the next leg of the trip. But what got me through was I think a big part of it was the optimism of youth and, of course, the healing power of a young, otherwise healthy dog. She was only about 15 months old at this date. November 15th, 1986, Saturday. Yesterday, the last of the Milo was cut. My respiration system is thankful. Milo dust has been in the air for the last few weeks, and I've spent much of the time wearing a painter's mask. It's only helped a little. It's been really tough. I would go in and out of bouts of not being able to breathe, especially at night. But still, work had to be done. I couldn't not work. But I have been drowning in fresh air. It's a very strange feeling. My lungs have been so clogged with dust that most of my air sacs haven't been able to take in oxygen. I'm not exaggerating. I think I only survived the last few weeks by sheer determination. Determination, and by downing some allergy pills that occasionally and partially have helped a little. Every day I've considered that it will get better, it'll pass, and I'll be okay. I won't die. Sometimes I just can't breathe. Delmer tells me that some people have grown up in it and have never gotten used to it. I felt less of a novice with that information. Side note. In the early 2000s, which was my late 30s, I discovered I have asthma. Learning that I suffer from asthma explained a lot of breathing issues I've had my whole life, so unknowingly, I was quite vulnerable when the Milo dust was flying. That diagnosis of asthma explained why I always felt I could never really get in good enough shape. It's a very strange feeling, especially when I felt I should have been in peak condition at certain times of my life. Because I always found I usually struggled to run or swim long distances. Burst the speeds I could do, but not marathons. And I think that's another reason why I wound up walking across America instead of running or cycling or becoming a grain farmer. And now we cut the sunflower. The flowers, high as an elephant's eye and pods as big as their ears, have finally fallen over, and that tells us they're ready to be harvested. Later. Here's an odd thought worthy of recording in my journal. Perhaps it's more of a rationalization. With all this AIDS virus thing going around, maybe someone is looking over me and keeping me away from women for my own good. This 18-month involuntary celibacy, or rather total physical abstinence, is for my own good. Still, the hell with that. I need a woman. November 16th, 1986, Sunday. Yesterday, the starter on the grain cart died. Today, I drove the big double clutching hauling truck back and forth from the combine as it and Bernard continued to harvest. Then I hauled the sunflower to our seed storage bins. And then, with only a few runs left on the last field, the combine busted. So that's it. Harvest is all over. I haven't seen Delmer yet, but I'm pretty sure this is the end. Well, this end is the end. Later, I talked to Delmer. It's over, and I proudly accepted a $50 bonus for a job well done. I appreciate that he thought I did a real good job. He took a chance on a greenhorn suburb boy walking across the country with his dog, and I never gave him cause to doubt or regret. It makes me feel great to know that I tried something new and I did it as best as I could and that was pretty darn good. 11/18/1986, Tuesday. Delmer took me to Dodge yesterday so he could do business and I could look for a place to live. I decided to go back, 30 miles east, to Dodge instead of going to Garden City because in the last 2 months, I've been to Dodge a couple of times. I know two people there, Delmer's brothers, and it does have some interesting history. That's good enough for me. I found the place at $250 a month, furnished and including utilities. It's a nice upstairs apartment in a nice neighborhood. The landlord and his family live downstairs. The only drawback is that there's no yard, and it looks like Dixie will have only me to rely on for walking to get her exercise. Oh, and the Dixie body of old is back. Just last week, she was jumping fences again. Incredible. It's been wonderful. Having to take her for a walk a few times every day to continue that exercise is not wonderful, but I can't be too picky. It is a concern of mine that Dixie will go from the freedom of a farm to the confines of an apartment. Her welfare and happiness are very important to me. She's not just a dog. She's my daughter, as silly as that might sound, because I really want what's best for her. She's my walking companion on this venture. I mean, I'm not sure I would have gotten this far without her. We've only been together for 6 months, but time means little when we talk about the intensity of those months. Well, tomorrow we will move again. Since starting college, I must have moved about 18 times. I'm an old pro at this. But here I go with a new life, looking for a job and friends in a new town. A town of about 18,000, which is by far the smallest I ever lived. Of course, this is bigger than the population of 7 on the Brady farm. November 19th, 1986, Wednesday, Dodge City, Kansas. Dixie and I packed up. It obviously didn't take very long, mostly my pack, gear, and a few other things I picked up for cooking. And now we are in town on 2nd Street in Dodge City, Kansas, 67801. We should be here for about 5 or 6 months. That's over twice the time we were on the farm, and that felt like a long time. And now we are just tenants. When we went down to the Sieberts to sign the lease, we weren't pseudo-celebrities or workers. We were regular people with the promise of being a good tenant, the type of that the Sieberts love. Glenn, Evie, blonde and beautiful 19-year-old Candy, and smart and fun-loving 13-year-old Justin, also known as father, mother, sis, and brother. They've made me feel right at home. And all of a sudden, I had friends. There's also Killer, the dog, and Hazel, the cat. November 22nd, 1986, Saturday. We were on the farm a little longer than originally expected, but we were only paid for the hours we worked. Considering that, we have $1,000 saved up as I had no place to spend the money I made. That means that we have to save only about $100 to $150 a month after expenses to get back on the road with the amount that I prefer. I bought some decent clothing and went on the hunt for a job. I walked to the outskirts of town where the most populous social club, drinking and dancing, mostly for the younger crowd, a place called Jason's Pizzazz, is located. The only marketable skill I have for Dodge City is being a bartender and or a waiter. It's a long walk, but I do what I have to do. this is a small town and there's only so much opportunity, and what there is, I have to try and take advantage of. However, unfortunately, Jason slash Pizzazz doesn't need me right now, and they have applications up the wazoo. Walking back, a car traveling the opposite direction turned around and offered me a ride back to town. Sam Scott is a couple of 100 years old, but he is a man with experience, and his memory of those times impacts his actions today, he says. He remembers times he wanted rides from passerbys. I wasn't hitching, but appreciated the lift. And I appreciated Sam. He's a big man. His hand, for instance, is bigger in every aspect than my two hands put together. He's a farmer, of course, from the town of Bloom, population 40. He talked slowly and drove even slower. Maybe it was to extend our time together. He enjoys talking to new people, and today I was that person. And I told him about my present lifestyle. Well, that sure brings back some traveling days of my own, he said. Back when I was 19, my brother and I motorcycled from Arkansas to Florida to Pennsylvania and back home. And this was in December and January, dead of winter. Whew, I've cycled too, I said. That is beyond cold. Tell me about it. He laughed as he reminisced. You could see it in his eyes. I'm still defrosting. Sam is not a great storyteller, nor did he paint a picture of what it was really like. But what he did do was make me aware of something that hadn't really been on my mind. Sam had a great time sharing his experience of 40 or 60, or maybe it was 210 years ago, of a youthful road trip, a biting cold, with thrilling and miserable moments, an adventure and memory that has stayed with him all these years. The good and the bad of that adventure was just a memory now, but such a pleasant part of his life, it seems. For him, so much more of a focus on the thrill than the misery. He seems to look back on the misery of the cold with almost fondness these days. But I get the impression that at the time, it was pretty miserable when the cold was biting and who knows where they were sleeping. I learned a lesson in the coincidental little meeting. Perhaps it wasn't so coincidental. A former traveler shared with a new traveler. And he taught me the importance of not being overly concerned with just the here and now, especially when reality isn't as wonderful as the dream, but to look at experiences as a whole. How the experience will affect me in the long term, and what it will mean and how it will influence me in the future. Of course, that's easy to remember about the good things, but this is the mentality I have to focus on during the not so good moments. That's the part that takes hard mental work. I continue to work on that. I like to think I'm getting better at it, especially now that Dixie is almost completely healed, and I don't feel so alone or bored now that I'm in town. Sam dropped me off back in town by El Capitan. El Capitan is a statue of an impressive longhorn steer, a representative of days gone by and a continuing reminder of what made Dodge City what it is. Famous for being one of the centers of the cattle trade, infamous for buffalo hunts, famous by Wyatt Earp and Bat Masterson, and famous by TV's Gunsmoke. The Long Branch Saloon is still there, but now it's part of a museum of those exciting days of the Wild West. But modern times, including litter, is Dodge City today. And as I got out of Sam's pickup, I was smacked in the leg by a piece of newspaper being blown down the road. Noticing the classified section, I picked it up. The Dodge City Daily Globe never seemed to have anything in the help wanted section that was of any relevance to me, so I stopped buying the paper. But today, there were 2 bartending jobs being advertised. November 24th, 1986, Monday. I had a feeling about Saturday's experience, and I was right. I was hired to tend bar at the newly opening Draft Choice Sports Themed Bar. It will be open in about a week, and I just have to wait until then. But now I have a job. That was much easier than I thought it would be. 1 job in 1 day after only trying 2 places? It's never been so easy. November 27th, 1986, Thanksgiving. Last Thanksgiving, I was with Mike and Karen camping out in our Dodge Ram van named Tvel, living in the forests of Alabama, and we had dinner in a small cafe restaurant named Alice's Restaurant. We got a kick out of that. This year, I had Thanksgiving dinner with the Sieberts in a mid-sized Midwestern town of Kansas. It's been a lovely day. Just the five of us for the holiday meal. But after dinner, some of their friends dropped by. We stood around the piano and sang songs, and then they taught me how to play the card game Hearts, and we had fun and conversed as we passed the cards. American Beauty, alive and well. And I was a part of it through the love of the Seabird family. I felt like I was in the Happy Days world of Father Knows Best. Side note, Happy Days and Father Knows Best were TV shows from the 1970s and 50s, respectively. Glenn is an ex farmer, rancher, and cowboy. Like so many, trying to make a living and raise a family became harder and harder as America changed. So, adapting, Glenn is now a successful insurance man. Evie is a mother as sweet and loving as pie. Yet, in the true sense of the word woman and mother, she is smart, educated, intuitive, and tough when she has to be. And she took care of the money matters as it was her I dealt with as a landlady. Justin just wants to have fun and reminds me of, well, me. My sister Karen is 3 years older than me, and I remember that while growing up, life was not full of many responsibilities. So I made one of my own, being obnoxious to my older sister. I was very successful too. Justin's personality proves that I'm not the only one who enjoys teasing an older sister and making her crazy. And when he wasn't laughing and joking, he showed me his room and his interest in space and rockets and space travel. And downstairs in the basement, he had working models of rockets that could fly higher than anyone could see. Justin is an all American boy. And of course, Candy. This is a mean trick. Candy is tall, slim, beautiful, blonde, smart, energetic, and rough and ready to play anything and just to have fun, from dancing to football to her theater studies in one of Dodge's two colleges. A girl that I'd love to date. I mean, after so long without a female companion, there is no reason not to ask her out. No reason, that is, except that I know me and my libido quite well. I consider myself reasonably smart, full of common sense, and in control. Thus, I do not consider it wise to date one, a religious girl attending a Catholic college still living with her parents, and two, dating a girl whose parents are also my landlords. Candy and I will become buddies, and I will appreciate that to no end. But this oversexed, sex starved 23-year-old in his prime type of guy will have to continue his frustration. But at least I'll keep my place to live. November 29th, 1986, Saturday. A strange thing hit me this morning. If I had gone with Mike and Karen and Drake to New Mexico instead of wanting to walk through Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, I would have been home back in Rockland County all this time too. And think of all I have done in those 6 months, or these 6 months instead. For some reason, it never quite occurred to me in that way. It has now. I have started a personal collage of pictures, quotes, and words from newspapers and magazines that have to do with my life. I have pictures of New York, the Yankees, and my old life, but I've added things that I never would have considered if I wasn't doing what I was doing. I've added pictures of farms and the Great Plains and small towns and cowboys, etc. Things that have now become a real part of who I am. Side note. This collage I'm talking about, created from flattening out on a paper grocery bag and taping newspaper and magazines clipping, is, I think, long gone. Too bad. It's a real keepsake, or would have been one. I might have it somewhere in storage. I'm not sure at this point. But I also think, wow, what a collage it would be by now if I kept adding to it, here at 62 years of age. But I have kept journals most of these years and even published a book of another adventure I took in 1989. Washington Walkabout was the name of that one. And all of these, they're so invaluable to me, because I really appreciate the opportunity that at times to look back at my documented life. It just makes the here and now much more interesting, or insightful sometimes upon reflection. And sometimes how the difference between my memories in the here and now coincide with maybe what I wrote at the time. So I got to tell you, there's so many advantages of documenting or keeping a journal, and I just won't go into it, but boy, I highly recommend everyone start doing it immediately. On a final note, This episode is dedicated to Janet Phipps and Jimmy Quattrocchi, friends since the late 1980s. Our latest adventure was a road trip from Port Angeles, Washington to Chicago, Illinois that included their dog, Danny. This is a friendship that has shared wit and wisdom and work and dogs and heartbreaks and passion and, well, generally life's ups and downs, as well as the ups and downs of hiking hundreds, if not thousands of miles of mountains and valleys and rivers and beaches together. Starting on day one of our meeting, we have shared millions of conversations, serious and silly, and most importantly, tons and tons of laughter. So, cheers to Janet and Jimmy, my respected editors, greatly appreciated supporters throughout my adult life, and two of my dearest forever friends. Well, that's it for now. Until next time, peace.